What's going on, MMA YouTube? Today we are going through each male UFC division here to see who I believe is the most promising contender or prospect slash future UFC champion in each division. So all the way from flyweight to heavyweight, contenders or prospects, they can be unranked too. Let's get into it. Okay, starting here in the flyweight division. Now, honestly hard to really source much talent from flyweight, but who's just made it onto my watch list? Steve Erceg. I can really picture him holding that flyweight strap in a couple of years from now, given how he looked in the Pantoja fight especially. And yes, I know it was kind of close, but I'm not going to argue that Erceg didn't win that fight. Like I said, I could have picked him. But listen, really well-rounded at flyweight, quite a traditional and refined striking approach, and a big gap in competition in the division. I think he can still get that belt and soon in the flyweight division. And look, Pantoja, currently 34 years of age, 35, 34. Do I think he can hold on for 2 or so years longer? Not particularly. We see in the lighter divisions, age becomes more of a staple and a harder problem to avoid. Honestly, in a Erceg rematch, I'm picking Erceg too. And if not, I think he can quite easily climb through the flyweight rankings until he reaches the top. So I'd pick him against Royval, Makayev, even Karp. So I've just got hope that Steve Erceg will be able to carry that flyweight belt in a couple years' time. And Steve Erceg, flyweight, he is my future champion. Alright, moving on to the bantamweights here. And this pick right here tells you that I don't do recency bias, because this man has lost in his last, and I still see a bright future for him. This is Song Yadong. I think Song Yadong is soon going to make a splash in the bantamweight division. Obviously, maybe take a little bit of time, just work on the things he needs to work on from his last. Because coming off of loss in, UFC 299 it was. UFC 299 against P.S I'm, a decision loss. But as a style matchup, I did kind of see that coming. And I really, it's not a loss I'm really devastated about. And I think he can't come back from. It's one where I expected it. Both men, they kind of have a similar fast twitch, slick boxing combining with head kicks and a lot of head movement. And then Yan won within that. Yan just outdid him within that style, and given Yan has more experience within that style, I don't blame him. And that was Yan's fight to win in a way. And it was close. It was still close. It was decisive, but Yudong put up a fight and Yudong showed himself in that fight. So honestly, not a horrible loss. I mean, and now looking forward now. One, Yudong comes ready learning off losses. He proved that against Sundhagen, for example, when he had other impressive wins. And two, he wasn't blown out of the water by Yan. He was just outpointed with precision, where both guys looked great. So I do see a promising future for Yudong if he doesn't let any losses set him back and rather works off them, which he has done before. And honestly, it's a long time project, but in a few years he could get the strap. So Song Yudong, my pick for a bantamweight future champion. Okay, now to the featherweight division. Who do I think could hold the belt in the future of featherweight? I think it's Lerone Murphy. Now, I know just an undefeated record attracts people, but that's not my foundation. It's more his most recent performance against Edson Barboza, putting quite the beating of Barboza to get the unanimous decision. Wow, did Lerone show how far he's come from 2 fights ago where he's won a split decision against Santos, which does not impress me. And you look at that comparatively to an Edson Barboza dominant win, that really shows that he's a developing prospect, and that's promising. Lawrence showed in that fight he has the 5 round endurance that a future champion will need. He has the capacity to dictate where he wants to keep the fight, especially on the feet, where he kept at range blasting straight shots on Barboza, where Barboza can really get in to the pocket where Barboza is dangerous. And that is against a style where Barboza can get in and really do damage, danger when Barboza gets going. Limited that. Lerone has a test-proven style, where I think he can get the belt. Almost the newer breed of fighter where they train MMA rather than individual combat sports, combining them. And when he has the tools to make Barboza look like he did, I think Murphy can get to the point of title contention or even champion it in 2 and 3 years. That's to say, Ilya Topuria is still not looking dominant, or even a Max Holloway comes up and upsets things. So at the same time, there is a little bit of an asterisk right there. But for now, looking just to the future and hoping maybe those athletes die down, Lerone Murphy is really a promising name. Okay, now this next division is a hard call for a future champ. What we're seeing with the OGs taking out the fresh prospects. So this pick does run the risk of looking silly, but for the lightweight division, man. So I'll do this one. This man is death staring me on the screen. I think my take Urubai. Damn, I'm not gonna attempt that first name again. Urubai could go on a goofy streak. Hey, and actually make it up there. I just don't see too many getting past the top lightweights, and if anyone is to do it, might just be this genetic freak. Let's get out common sense for this one. This man is probably fighting for food still. This man is probably fighting for food. This man has that prehistoric determination to hunt. It's in his blood, and now that woolly mammoths are extinct, he has to fight for food in the UFC. Alright, but honestly, Joe side, I feel like he does badly want that top ranking, and unfortunately, we've seen this style work. These guys, I hate to say it, but almost wet blankets really work, and honestly, maybe we're getting a lightweight Bilal with this one. Urubai will be a future contender, and hopefully not a champion in lightweight. Okay, welterweight pick here. My welterweight pick here isn't groundbreaking or unheard of, and I was questioning whether this guy is already too high up to pick as a future champion, but when his name is brought up, all you hear about is his future. So, as welterweight future champion, I think Shavkat Rakhmonov can convincingly get to that belt, coming off wins against GF Neal, which aged better when Rakhmonov did better than Gary in that fight, a win against Wonderboy in his most recent, where he didn't mess around on the feet, grinded him down and tapped him in the second. 100% finish streak. The reputation on Shavkat is just unreplicable. Coming off wins like these against highly skilled competitors and showing new aspects of your game each time is going to solidify you in this list. And we know his wrestling is world class. His kick game is becoming better and better. His power is deadly. And his chin shows to be strong, actually. We've seen that in the Neil fight. So Shavkat has all the makings of a future champion. I could see it next year if matchmakers actually do their thing. So Shavkat Rakhmonov, welterweight future champion. I would love the Nomad to be champion, to be honest, because every time this guy puts on a show, every time this guy does what he's meant to from the fans. So I'd love this guy to win. Okay, in the middleweight division, I think Michel Pereira can actually achieve championship status in the future. I really like his striking style in that he is just so explosive. And these days, even though he's conservative on the feet, when he senses weakness on the feet, when he maybe catches an opponent with a stinging shot or rocks them slightly, but they keep the poker face and barely show it, he still senses that and he lurches onto that finishing shot so quickly. It's impressive, and his grappling mirrors that in many ways. In that he often immediately transitions into that submission, which people need to learn from because it actually does catch his opponents off guard, and we see that now. He's won like two in his most recent, I believe, yeah, Potiera and Oleg in the same way by rear naked choke both, I believe, in the first round because he's quickly lurched that rear naked choke and hasn't really thought about it and hasn't given his opponents time to think about it. So when I see someone who's able to tally their strong finishing ability on the feet and their grappling, I see title contention for this man anytime in the future at middleweight. And his style reminds me of a Johnny Walker if Walker had better fight IQ. I was also debating placing Borralho here, but no, Michel Pereira. I think could be a future middleweight champion. And next up, I like heavyweight. My pick now for future champion is Carlos Ulberg. Now, this is cheap here, but I don't see any prospect in the division beating Pereira right now. So I'm kind of begging on Ankalaev to be champion in the future so Ulberg can take that belt. But Ulberg is the next hope from City Kickboxing, and I think this man's kickboxing is on point. I like in his last how he evaded the storm from Manyfield and then used that forward momentum of Manyfield to get him against the cage and punish him with that KO only a few seconds into the fight. And Ulberg has shown a masterful offensive awareness and shot selection, which is what I would call his best trait. Looking forward at all potential matchups, I could see him rising and winning those fights for him. Next, he's taking on Smith. Yes, Smith at 303, and I think he steals that one quite easily against Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith wins by shock, and Ulberg isn't stupid enough to put himself into a guillotine. Petrino. He does take a second to think when he's in those positions. Light heavyweight future champion will be Carlos Ulberg. Now, finally, onto the heavyweight division. I'm sorry, guys, but there's not enough talent. I'm gonna have to pick Aspinall, even though he's already interim champion, just because I don't see anyone else getting to the belt anytime soon. So heavyweight is like the most top heavy division, and so the most promising futures are right there. Okay, Aspinall has a killer finishing ability. As we're all aware by now, he drops guys who we think have a chance, like Pavlovich or Spivak, absolute ease, and he's really shown basically little to no weaknesses so far in his career, which is just crazy to say given how up and down the UFC can be. And I'm leaving aside the Blades fight because that was pretty much unavoidable. But Aspinall breaks people. He is insanely swift for a heavyweight, and I think he defeats John Jones, to be honest. So let's hope we see that. We're not. We won't see that. But eventually, Tom will win that title. And that's why my pick for heavyweight future champion, if not already champion, is going to be Tom Aspinall, just because of how god awful some heavyweights are, man. Well, who else am I going to pick? Salsa Boy? No. Rebelis de Spain? No. I have no other choices, and that's left with Tom Aspinall.